Greetings everybody, this is Leviathan here, and I'm finally bringing you a build guide. I know it's been super long, and I used to be in the habit of doing these things, but lately I've been taking a break from them, but so many people have requested it, I figured I had to give you guys my version of the Torment 13 farming Lashing Tail Kick build for the Monk, based on the Legacy of Nightmares setup. Right now I have some gameplay footage for you, so I'll go ahead and get that going while talking about some of the basics of the build. As you might have guessed, this is a high-flying, kick all the things in the face build. We move around with the Ingeom because it is an awesome item that when you kill elites, basically gives you full resets on your cooldowns all the time. So you just kill elites, you dash around the map, you kill more elites, and that's pretty much how you get all your greater rifts, or your normal rifts done. You could even use this in like medium tier greater rifts as well too, but I'm specifically talking to you today about Torment 13 farming. So as you might be able to see on the screen in front of you, there's Nemesis bracers involved, so any pylon, any shrine that you see is just another source of an elite, and elites are your sources of resets on your Ingeom. So that's basically the gist of the build. You run around, you left click on everything, which is where our Lashing Tail Kick is. We're going with the spinning flame kick, I believe, rune. We'll get into the skills in just a moment here. So you can just see it's tons of, like, even though it's a single target skill, you're still getting some AoE thrown out there with all the tornadoes and the fireballs from the Gyana Nakashu. It's a really fun build to play. I actually have a blast whenever I'm doing this. Hours go by and I've farmed up, you know, hundreds of keys, thousands of death breaths, and it's really a blast to play. So I hope you guys will join me in looking at some of the finer details here as we transition from the build, and you can see just how quickly it's going. This is a Torment 13 regular rift, like I was saying, and we're practically done. We're like maybe a minute or two in, and I was averaging about 3 minutes with my setup, and it can get better than what I have too. So let's go ahead and dive right in to the real deal here. The real deal Holyfield. We'll start off with the skills, because that's important to know. Like I was mentioning, Lashing Tail Kick, Spinning Flame Kick. That is the rune that I like to choose for Lashing Tail Kick. A lot of people will always tell me, hey, Leviathan, Vulture Claw Kick, it's so awesome. I 100% agree, but I think Vulture Claw Kick is better used in higher tier greater rifts, or any sort of difficulty where the mobs are going to last for quite some time, because that dot will go to work for you in those instances. But here, you're killing things in 1 to 2 to 3 shots. You don't really need that dot. And like I mentioned, you get a little bit more AoE with the tornadoes of the Spinning Flame Kick. So I like to use that rune for my Lashing Tail Kick. In the next slot, our right mouse button, we have the Mantra of Conviction with Annihilation. All that really does for us is just get us some movement speed whenever we kill some mobs. That helps out a lot in terms of making it so that we can continue to move around the map as quickly as we possibly can. One of the best things in speed builds, of course, is movement speed. And on top of that, you also want more damage, and that's what Mantra of Conviction with Annihilation gives you. A little bit of both. You really don't activate the mantra, it's just kind of passively there for you to get you that increased movement speed and increased damage. But the moment when you might need it would be against the Rift Guardian right at the end. You can just pop it right as it's spawning, and it helps you kill it even faster than we already do. Next up, we have Dashing Strike, Way of the Falling Star. Dashing Strike is by far one of the best movement skills in the game. Anyone who has never played a monk, you should play it just to experience how ridiculous this skill is. It's the cleanest, best movement. You can go over gaps. It doesn't even cost resource. It's a charge-based skill. I just love it. I absolutely 100%, after playing Crusader a ton, playing Demon Hunter a ton, and thinking they have really great movement skills, Dashing Strike by far blows it away. We go with the Way of the Falling Star. Again, the theme here is more movement speed. So you want that increased movement speed, which you get whenever you use Dashing Strike with Way of the Falling Star. And as I was mentioning, because we have an Ingeom in this build, whenever you kill elites, Dashing Strike is basically free all the time, so you just spam it across the map to get your next elite pack. The next skill up is Epiphany, Desert Shroud. We are on Torment 13, and I also play hardcore, so I like to lean on the side of a little bit more defense. If you feel perfectly fine, you can actually drop Desert Shroud, which is the one that gives you 50% damage reduction, and go for something like Insight, which would just give you more spirit regen. Because one of the things about this build is whenever there's a lapse of elites, you can run into some instances where your cooldowns aren't resetting as quickly as you would like, so you might be low on spirit regen, you might be low on actually getting your Epiphany up, things like that. So, you know, in the instance that you might have Epiphany but you don't have your Blinding Flash, then maybe you want Epiphany Insight and you'll get a little bit more spirit back. Otherwise though, I would go Desert Shroud. I really enjoy having that safety net. Next up, Blinding Flash, Faith in the Light. More damage amplification. Blinding Flash serves two purposes because we have the Laws of Seph in the cube, and we'll go over the cube powers in just a moment. But this will, with the Laws of Seph, actually give us our spirit back, so it kind of becomes our generator, in quotes. Whenever we're doing Blinding Flash, we're getting spirit, and then we're spamming out that spirit with our spender of Lashing Tail Kick. And then, as a side effect of using Blinding Flash, Faith in the Light, we're also dealing increased damage whenever we use it. And this because of Ingeom, and also because of the Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, which is another cube power that we have. It's up all the time, so we're just spamming Blinding Flash. Like, because it is the main source of how we get our spirit back, you need to be constantly pressing that button so that you can continue to do damage. Last but not least, for our active skills, Cyclone Strike Implosion. And this I don't use too much throughout the Rift, but because we also are using Lefebvre's shoulders, we're never going to say the full name on that because we're going to butcher it, that gives us a little bit of defense as well. And again, like I mentioned, sometimes you want that additional defense just to keep you safe, especially if you're hardcore like myself. But what this does do is if you do get into a moment where there's some density and you don't want to, like, you know, Lashing Tail Kick to the left, Lashing Tail Kick to the right, Lashing Tail Kick to the north, Lashing Tail Kick to the south, just Implosion it, pull it all together, and then usually 1 to 2 to 3 Lashing Tail Kicks will get everything killed. Even though, like, you might be spitting it out in one direction, because they're all grouped so tightly around you, they will all get hit. So very nice skill for creating some density in those awkward moments. Looking at our passives, we have Harmony, which is one of the greatest defensive passives out there. This one makes it so that 40% of your single elemental resistances from your items instead increases your resistance to all elements. So if you have on one piece 200 physical resistance, 80 of that is going to go to all of your other resistances. Best way to think about it. So this is really great. It makes it so that stacking instead of all res on all your pieces, opening up your primary affixes to be more damage worthy or more utility worthy, like CDR, RCR, etc. Then instead you can go for a secondary resistance and still get quote unquote all res because of Harmony. Seize the Initiative. I didn't believe in this passive until I really thought about it, and it is insanely useful, insanely powerful in this build in particular. So any enemies that are above 75% life, your attack speed will go up 30% for 4 seconds. The beautiful thing about this is you're going to be one-shotting to two-shotting a lot of things, so this will always be working for you. And it just allows you to spam way more often and way more furiously than you ever could imagine that you would ever do. It's wonderful. Attack speed is a huge boon with this build, and you get it from a lot of random sources. So use Seize the Initiative. It might not look like damage, but it is a lot of damage, and it also helps with Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac and resetting some of those cooldowns. Speaking of cooldowns, Beacon of Ytar, reduce all cooldowns by 20%. This is almost a staple in a lot of monk builds. It's powerful. CDR is really good in most builds. We want to reduce our cooldowns here, so I go for that. And then Momentum is something I've been playing with. It's a skill that I like because we're moving so quickly through a lot of these maps. It's pretty much always up. Moving 25 yards increases your damage by 20% for 6 seconds, so you get a nice bonus of damage here. You could also go with a couple of other passives like Relentless Assault, where if anything's blinded, you do 20% more damage to it. You might even look for like Exalted Soul if you find you're really having issues with Spirit Regen. Determination's not bad either. It might force you to do Cyclone Strike a little bit more, so group up some enemies for increased damage, but you have some options. And then moving towards gear, since we do have a 5th passive, this is a good time to transition over to gear. Let's look at our Hellfire Amulet, which has near-death experience. Again, hardcore, I don't like to die. I want that extra shot at staying alive, so near-death experience on my Hellfire for the passive. But like I mentioned, there's a few other options you could go for if you just want straight up more damage or a little bit more utility. But as you can see, this amulet is amazing. This is a fire-based build. We mentioned that we use Lashing Tail Kick, Spinning Flame Kick, Flame, Fire. It's all good. So this is an ideal Hellfire Amulet. Of course you would want like maxed out numbers, but got fire skills, critical hit damage, critical hit chance, and even the secondary with physical resistance, like I mentioned, for Harmony. It's beautiful. Gyaana Nakashu is one of the major items for this build because Lashing Tail Kick, again, is our sole source of damage. This one has a legendary power, which Lashing Tail Kick releases a piercing fireball that deals X amount of damage. It can range from 1050 to 1400%. Weapon damages fire to enemies within 10 yards on impact. So again, you can see more fire damage. It's really good. There's a little bit of some mechanics issues because the way that the fireball interacts with the boots, Rivera Dancers, makes it so that not necessarily every Lashing Tail Kick releases a fireball, but nevertheless, it's still very good, very powerful. So you would like to lean towards getting a nice percent number on that legendary power. But then otherwise, you're looking at Dex Vit, critical hit chance, and then it comes with a nice boosted Lashing Tail Kick damage. It can range from 75 to 100. You would love to get to 100. And then a secondary resistance on there. And of course, Call the Sun's Despair. I should mention, by the way, that I don't recommend running T13 until you have all of your pieces augmented, preferably in like the 70 rank range. Just to make sure that you're killing things quickly enough, because ideally you want to be moving through with an average of about 3 minutes for your regular rifts, and if you're not hitting that, you're probably going to be more efficient in something like T11 or T12. T13 is the pinnacle. You don't necessarily need to be farming it, but it's nice to be able to do that if you have a build that's capable of doing it quickly. You just get a lot more materials, Death's Breaths, Greater Rift Keys, etc. Let's go to the shoulders, where we have, like I mentioned, Lefebvre's Soliloquy. We just call them Lefebvre's. Here I went for Dex Vit, cooldown, and resource cost reduction. Because you have the Ingeom going for this build, which gives you basically unlimited blinding flash, RCR goes down in terms of being a priority stat, but I also use these shoulders in Greater Rifts as well too, so they're kind of serving dual purpose for me, and you do need RCR in Greater Rifts, so I kind of just, you know, I'm working with what I got here. But you might even go with like area damage on ones where you can, if you have like a second pair that you roll off your RCR for something else. You don't really even need area damage, just again because you're not grouping so many things up because you're killing them so quickly. So I don't know, you have some options here maybe. But yes, this is what I've got in the shoulder slot. For the chest, Cinder Coat comes with fire skills increase, which of course again we want more fire. We don't have a convention of elements in here, so any source of extra fire elemental damage is great. Then Dex Vit, sockets on here, sometimes, often, Cinder Coats do not come with sockets, so you want to roll that up. And then a secondary resistance is nice. And the legendary power here, reduce the cost of your fire skills by 30%, so it just allows you to spam out way more Lashing Tail Kicks. It's beautiful, perfect synergy with the build. You need a Cinder Coat. On the bracers, Nemesis bracers, these ones for me have been eluding me forever. I don't have ones with Dex and Vit, which is what I would like, but here I have fire skills increase, Dex, armor, critical hit chance, and then a secondary. Actually having pickup radius is nice here because, as you might imagine, because we have so many legendary powers and secondaries that we're looking for elemental resistances, you don't get a lot of pickup radius, so the build actually suffers from not being able to pick up the orbs as efficiently as you would like. I address that in just a moment here, but getting 1 to 2 rolls of pickup radius isn't all that bad. So even though we're missing a elemental resistance here, pickup radius is not as bad second option. Let's move to the gloves, because this addresses exactly what I was going to talk about. A lot of people are like, hey, Mage Fist, that makes perfect sense for a fire build. And yes, you definitely will use Mage Fist in the Greater Rift setup for this Lashing Tail Kick Legacy of Nightmares thing. But here, I actually really like the Gloves of Worship. The reason I use these is because you're going to find plenty of shrines as you go throughout your regular rifts. You can even give yourself a leg up by doing a Bovine Bardiche in the Cube to open up the Not the Cow level, where you'll find, I think, 4 or 5 shrines guaranteed. And it starts you out with a Fleeting Shrine, a Frenzy Shrine, an Empowered Shrine, a Protection Shrine. Fleeting is the one that you're most interested in because it boosts your pickup radius. So for that first 10 minutes of regular rifting, you have that pickup radius where you don't have to worry about the orbs when they drop from the elites. They will be like instantly picked up for you, and that is amazing because you don't have to worry about being inefficient and running in circles to get all the orbs. So that's why I really like Gloves of Worship. Again, if you're running out of power, if you feel like you need to hit harder, certainly go for Mage Fist, but these are really nice utility pieces. And here you want Dex Vit, critical hit chance, critical hit damage. And then of course secondary, I actually have, look at that, some pickup radius, but you know the deal. So it's a really nice piece, honestly, if you can farm it up. These are from the Act 2 bounties. I recommend giving it a shot. I really do like my builds using the Gloves of Worship here. The belt is going to be the Witching Hour, just for more raw damage output. Dex Vit, attack speed, and critical hit damage are kind of the unique properties of this one. And then of course secondaries would be nice to get like lightning, or sorry, to get a physical resistance. Physical resistance, by the way, is probably the best because it helps you with melee attacks. And then of course transfers all those all res to the other ones through Harmony. And then pickup radius would have been great here too. Thorns isn't really doing much for us here. On the rings that make this whole thing come together, we have the Legacy of Nightmares set, the Wailing Host, and the Litany of the Undaunted. For these, for speed farming rifts, I would go with Dex, critical hit chance, critical hit damage. They're just, you know, standard rings in terms of getting pure damage output. Having some secondary resistances, again, is wonderful. You can see both of these pretty much mirror each other, and they are essentially ideal. You could consider some other things too, like maybe CDR instead of the Dex. In greater rift setups, it'd be like area damage instead of Dex. So those rings are very hard to come by. If you could get that plus the critical hit damage and critical hit chance. But these will do, certainly, for your T13 farming. And I'll use this time to address the gems that I use, legendary gems. Bane of the Powerful. Again, this whole build surfaces and works around killing elites as quickly as possible. So this gem is all about killing elites. Very good for that. Bane of the Trapped has always been one of the best DPS gems. So we use that, of course, because we're up close and personal. It's a melee build. So it is always procced for us. It's great. Go with Bane of the Trapped. And then the third gem is very much up for grabs. I use Boon of the Hoarder just because you do want to empower your greater rifts. Empowering uses your gold. It's a gold sink, so you need to make your gold back. And having a Boon of the Hoarder is really nice. Even if you don't have the Avarice Band combo with it, you're still picking up gold all the time. Your pet's picking up gold. So you'll run into, on average, like in a T13 rift, maybe you'll leave with 25 million gold without even realizing that you're picking it up. So it's actually really nice to throw into your build. But if you feel like you need more utility, you can go for the standard gem, which would be Gogok of Swiftness in its place. Alright, moving on, we got the pants, Swampland Waders. These pants are super tough to come by for monks because these are, as you can tell, a Witch Doctor specific item. However, they are best in slot for Legacy of the Nightmares builds because fire. You can get elemental damage on your pants, so that's huge. Again, not using COE, so more fire elemental we can get, the better. And that's what you can get out of these pants. That's why so many monks go for these in particular. Here you can see I managed to roll a decent pair. What you would do is hopefully get either raise a Witch Doctor yourself and get these pants and then, you know, reforge in the cube. Hopefully you can get a pair that comes naturally with fire skills, deal, you know, X% more damage, and then roll the intelligence off, because they will always have intelligence since they're Witch Doctor pants, into Dex. You know, sometimes you might end up needing to just have intelligence on there because you have to roll something else, but this is a great pair in my opinion. I did show the boots a little bit previously, but here they are again. Rivera Dancers, these are also integral to the build because they increase your Lashing Tail Kick attack speed and damage. Range on that power is 250 to 300%, so aiming for that higher end will only help you clear those rifts faster. And your stats here are going to be Dex Vit, All Res, I think those all come naturally, and then that fourth one you always want to reroll to Lashing Tail Kick damage just to get even more Lashing Tail Kick going. And because the secondary can't roll a single resistance since you have all res on there by default, then you can go for anything else, maybe some pickup radius here. Lastly, the two weapons, keep mentioning Ingeom, here it is. This is the one that gives you the power where your skill cooldowns are reduced by a certain amount of seconds for 15 seconds after killing an elite pack, can range from 8 to 10. And so this is why we concentrate so hard on killing the elites in these rifts, because you just want to keep resetting those cooldowns over and over to get infinite dash, infinite spirit, all the good stuff. On here I like to go for high base roll, hopefully, percent damage, dex, and then cooldown. Because again, like I mentioned, there might be those times where there's a lapse in not having an elite pack to kill, or just kind of, you know, something awkward and you're in that weird situation where you haven't killed an elite in a while. At least you have some natural CDR bringing back your skills for you. And the other side of things, so we're dual fisting, is a Scarbringer. Scarbringer is a lovely fist weapon that makes it so that the damage of your Lashing Tail Kick is increased by 300% to the first 6 enemies hit. So you can see there's so many multipliers for Lashing Tail Kick here. Makes it hit like a truck. It is awesome. So here again, same stat priority, nice base damage, a 10% damage roll would be nice. Some dex and cooldown reduction. And then this power can also range 5 to 7. 7 would be ideal, that way you don't have to like worry about, oh no, there's 7 enemies and only 6 of them are being hit super hard. But again, you're killing things so handily with this build, it doesn't even matter. So that about does it for the gear. Last but not least, we'll check out the cube. Like I mentioned, we have these 3 powers. The furnace is the one that I like to use. Normally it's going to be a flying dragon. The furnace is great because again, elite killing, that's all we're here for. So we kill the elites even faster with some increased damage to elites. That's why we got the furnace. The Laws of Seph make it so that when you use Blinding Flash, restore some spirit for you. So then spirit is our spirit, or Blinding Flash is our spirit generator. So that is awesome. And then last but not least, Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. This is a slot that you can mess around and potentially go for an Avarice band that makes the whole pickup radius thing really, really nice. But it does make it so that if you do run into those awkward periods, like I keep mentioning, where there aren't elites, not having the Obsidian Ring to help with that kind of resetting of your cooldowns could make it so that you're vulnerable with an Epiphany down, or not having Blinding Flash to restore some spirit, so you're just kind of sitting there not able to Lashing Tail Kick. So I really prefer to run with an Obsidian Ring just to make sure the build runs smoothly at all times. And last but not least, we'll talk about Paragon. Of course I have everything maxed out, but in general for you want to max movement speed first. You shouldn't have any movement speed on your boots because like I mentioned, everything will be, you know, dex, vit, all res, and Lashing Tail Kick damage. So max movement speed and then go all dexterity. Priority in terms of offense would be cooldown reduction, and then like critical hit damage, and then like attack speed or critical hit chance depending on where your critical hit chance is at. Attack speed does help just because you will spam out Lashing Tail Kicks faster. Defense wise, I like to go all res first, and then armor, and then life, and then life regen. And then in utility, I like area damage, resource cost reduction, definitely important in this build, and then life per hit, and then gold find. And that pretty much does it for the build. Follower is not super important, you can kind of throw whatever. Having the Oculus Ring is normally one of the biggest things in terms of damage offense, helping you to make sure that you have multipliers when you're attacking, when you stand in that circle, but you're running through these rifts so quickly, you normally don't even have time to stand in the circle. The only time you might benefit from it would be against the Rift Guardian, perhaps. And then of course making sure he can't die, so get that follower can't die token. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed my build. I tried to really speed through it there so that this video doesn't go on too long. I know a lot of people like to complain, it's like, oh, I just want to see the build, I just want to make sure it's awesome and blah blah blah. So here's a little bit more footage of it for you in case you need to be convinced how awesome this thing is. Let me know if you play it in the comments below. I'll also put kind of a short description of the build and some of the skills and things like that in the video below, or in the comment section, or in the detailed description below. Thank you guys so much, hope you enjoy, and I'll be seeing you in Sanctuary. Feel free to give this thing a like if you like the build, if you like the video, and also feel free to stop by my stream at twitch.tv/Leviathan111, where you can see this build in action. Until then, take care.